All right, cool. Ready? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Construct Strategically. Jans and Andy. Today's episode, I've got Raine Selles, this is an episode I'm really excited for because Raine's not only my first female guest. Thank you for being my first female guest. Appreciate it.
I'll find you some more.
No, thank you, Raine. Raine is also somebody who's helped me get into the consulting world, which is real interesting. So Raine came onto my project and asked me if I'd want to do some consulting work for her, and crossed my employers, and they said yes. And that's how strategic planning was born. Thank you, Raine. Appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
So more importantly, let's hear from Raine. Raine, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Me?
What do you do?
Well, good. I am a construction claims consultant, I guess. Yep. Aren't many of those here in New Zealand.
Not many, no. Not many like you anyways.
No, definitely not. Lots and lots of us in the UK.
Yep.
Lots of us with a law degree and with a background in project management, quantity surveying, architecture and so on. So I'm probably the first dual qualified person here in New Zealand.
So you're a lawyer?
So no, I'm not a lawyer.
You don't practice law?
I've got a law degree.
That's
and
right.
I've got a master's in Construction Law and Arbitration from King's in London.
Yep.
So I started off in life as a QS.
Yep.
I decided to go down the legal route, the claims route, and had a great boss, John Webster, who gave me the opportunity of doing a law degree. He paid for it, sponsored me through there.
Wow.
So whilst I was doing my 10-year apprenticeship, I did my law degree.
Yep.
And after 10 years of working with John, doing LPA receiver work, construction claims for subcontractors as well as main contractors, I decided I needed some civils experience. Went to work for a company called CMC actually at the time.
CMC Asia Pacific?
Well, no,
CMC London. CMC London.
And was based on site with some of the biggest projects, civil engineering projects at the time. So Jubilee Line Extension, CTR projects, motorways, bridges, you name it. I was on site kind of putting all the claims together for them.
Wow.
So did that, and that company sponsored me through my master's degree.
Yep.
And then I went out on my own for a little while, and then went to work for one of the bigger claims consultancies, James R. Knowles.
Right.
Then after that, Hill International, who are an American organisation, and worked on Palm Island, the Taiwan high-speed rail link.
Wow, you work in Taiwan? I don't know that.
No, just on the claims there, Beirut International Airport.
Yeah.
We were experts on that. Being that I am your first woman or lady, female
guest.
whatever, guest.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
It's probably an opportune point to now sort of note that I had started NAWIC, which is the National Association of Women in Construction.
That's right. Yeah,
in the UK, yeah.
And you're the founding member in New Zealand, aren't you?
And founding member of the Auckland branch.
Auckland branch,
yeah,
right.
Along with a few bunch of ladies.
Oh, really cool.
Yeah. So I came here in 2012. I actually did an interview in 2011 with a couple of PQS practices who told me on no uncertain terms that I was not needed in New Zealand, that contractors knew where their bread was buttered, and if contractors made too much noise, they would be taken off the tender list. So I went home thinking, oh my God, they really need me.
Yep.
And I've been practicing here now for 10 years.
Yep.
And
we worked on a couple of...
and we've worked on some projects.
Yeah, projects together.
I work for, principals, main contractors, subcontractors, right across the board, sorting out contractual issues which seem to be prevalent and the same actually right throughout the industry.
Yeah.
So launched NAWIC, been busy here for 10 years, still helping people out, doing a lot of training. So I'm now training, consultants.
Yep, and we've done some training together too, which is really cool.
We've done that. Subcontractors really need the training.
Absolutely. Oh man, that training is gold. The contract training that you provide and combined with the planning training.
It's needed.
It's something really I believe the industry needs.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a really underskilled industry here. I mean, I'm used to working in the UK where it's quite litigious. Everybody seems to understand contracts. Everyone seems to understand, what they do, what they need to be doing. Programming, everyone knows how to write a program.
Yep.
Everyone knows how to write an extension of time claim.
You know what the interesting thing is? I actually go on multiple sites, right?
Yeah.
And some of the key things that I actually look for is I walk into the project manager's desk and have a yarn with him, and I'm always scouting for where's the contract on his desk.
Yeah, never is. Always in the bottom drawer. Yeah. And probably not signed, or probably in some Connect system somewhere.
Yep.
But yeah,
Funny
never
though,
where it should be.
every job I go to, I'm like, where's the contract? Where's the contract? Can I get a copy of the contract? Like, you're a planner, why do you need the contract? I'm like, I need the contract.
Yes.
What did you sign up to? I have no idea what you signed up to.
Yeah.
So we've got project managers delivering work, and they have no idea what they signed up to, which is interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, and completion dates.
No?
Completion dates. Subcontracts absent of completion dates.
Oh yeah.
So this is the biggest thing.
So we're talking about subcontracts, not the main contract.
Well, we do see main contractors without completion dates as well. It's as per the contract program.
Help me understand the importance of that.
The importance of that is absolutely paramount, because everybody needs to know the timescales they're working to. They need to know
as a planner, I should know that
drop dead date that they've got to complete by. Well, if that's vague, then very often I'll come in and say, well, actually it's not certain.
Yeah.
Or it's based on a program that was out of date by 6 months by the time you started the work, and time is essentially.
So when you say subcontracts with no completion dates, what are the implications of that?
The implications are is how do the subcontractors know when they're supposed to complete by?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest problems we have here is that subcontractors are given 3-week look-ahead programs. They're given maybe if but they're often, we've got 3910, which says that, there's got to be a comprehensive program, and that comprehensive program is updated either monthly or fortnightly.
Okay, can I pause there?
Yeah.
What's comprehensive?
A detailed program.
Sure, okay.
So time risk allowances,
comprehensive
milestones, has everything in there, the drop dead dates for everything that is needed to actually work to that program.
Okay. What I'm getting to is what's comprehensive to a subcontractor is very different to what's comprehensive to a main contractor and what's comprehensive to a client. Do you see what I mean? It's a very relative term. It's a comprehensive, right?
Yeah.
So I'm working on site as as one of the tradies who's pouring concrete. So comprehensive to me is right down to the nuts and bolts of exactly how I need to pour concrete, right?
Yeah.
But to a client, pour concrete on one task for a particular duration is comprehensive enough.
Yeah.
So,
but he needs to know, that subcontractor needs to know who's following him and when.
And what the implications are.
Yeah, when does he need to complete by for the next task on that program to actually start?
Yep.
So if he's starting to a program which is 6 months out of date, and then he's given
which it
always is, and then he's given a 3-week look ahead. All he's working to is a 3-week look ahead, which, well, this is what I need to do for them, but has no correlation between what is really needed for the rest of the job.
No,
and this is the problem.
Yep.
Is that our subcontractors are not getting the full information.
Right. But do you believe if they get the full information, they have the capability to fully understand the information that they've been presented with?
Well, if they don't, then there is no reason whatsoever why the main contractor can't actually run through. He's got a responsibility, isn't he?
100%.
To make sure that his subcontractors are starting on time, are performing in accordance with the program, so that the next task on that program can be met. If he's not, if you've got most subcontractors here, are not very au fait with programs. But, what's wrong with communicating it? Okay, right, guys, you need to perform the works to this time scale. Otherwise, you're going to be delaying the project.
Yeah.
And if you've got a problem as to why you can't meet that time scale, we need to know about it. But the trouble is, what happens is that dialogue doesn't happen. The dialogue that kind of goes on is, there's a program, work to it, get on with it. And then what happens, as we know, is that we're seeing contracts now which have got curly little clauses in, that you're not entitled to an extension of time unless you've sent in an EOT claim with all the bells and whistles and in this time frame. But how can you do that? How can you perform with all the bells and whistles if you haven't got the base information in the first place?
So what happened to clause 10.3?
What happened to clause well, there's another argument, you see. So clause 10.3, well, this is another thing, you see. So we've got 3910, which is one of the rare contracts in the world that actually has an express good faith clause in it. Now, what you'll find is...
So for a common man, can you explain what a good faith clause is?
So good faith. So in Australia and New Zealand, you know, we kind of rely on the fact that the parties will act in good faith. Australia, it is not an express, it's an implied provision that the parties are going to do that. The difference in 3910, which you don't get in an NEC contract, for example, and this is the difference between UK law and Australian law, is the fact that UK contracts, NEC, are very clear and unambiguous. If you don't do something by that date, you're not going to get it. You've got the early warning process, which is akin to our clause 521 notice here. You've got the compensation events, which is the extension of time, and then the money that goes with it. Here we have this mishmash of bespoke subcontract drafting. We don't even have a subcontract that goes with 3910. It's a master builders, you know, which is insane, because if you look at the master builders contract, there's no provision for liquidated damages, but there is a provision for an extension of time. Well, that's nonsensical, because the reason we have an extension of time is so that it gets you out of liquidated damages. So we're using a master builder's subcontract to work with a contract, you know, 3910, that doesn't really fit all situations.
But we are due for a revision of NZ 3910.
And 3910 is being revised.
It's been revised for the last 4 years, and it's still being revised.
Well,
I'm still waiting.
Yeah, apparently we're going to be getting a draft version out, I think, July next year. It'll be interesting what it says. But, you know, of all the stuff that I look at...
Well, the draft version, okay, cool. So a government procedure probably states that you've got to revise a contract once every 10 years. The last one was released 2013.
No, there's no government procedure.
No, there isn't. There isn't one for that.
No, there isn't. It is literally what. So the Society of Construction Law put a survey out to industry. Do you think 391 works?
No, it doesn't.
Works?
You know,
and it all came back and no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
You know, I know working here for 10 years.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work because you've got lawyers drafting special conditions.
Yeah.
Thicker
than the contract itself.
Well, they put in time bars and things, and you've got to do this by then. But they completely miss the whole point of the contract, which is this express duty of good faith on the internet of the contract to actually act independently, impartially, and in good faith. Now, interestingly, 10.3.2...
Engineers to the contract. I want to talk about that.
Engineers to the contract.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that. But 10.3.2 in 3910 says that the engineer is not bound to grant an extension of time unless the contractor does it within 20 working days or reasonably practical thereafter.
Reasonably practical.
But we know that those words are taken out generally now. They take that, says it within 20 working days. But look at the words, he's not bound to. So there's a choice. There's a choice there. Now, interestingly, what comes back from engineers to the contract is, you're time barred, you haven't done it.
Yeah, it's a standard response from every project management company, every engineer to the contract.
Absolutely.
Ridiculous.
But look at the wording. The wording says he's not bound to, he doesn't have to, but because you've got this good faith clause in the contract, an express duty of good faith, he should do if he knows there's been an act of prevention by the principal. Yeah. It's not the contractor's fault that he's delayed.
But why is that though? The engineer to the contract is not paid by both parties, is he?
No. And this is
9 times out of 10, he is only paid by the client.
By the principal. And there's the problem.
Raine, I've worked with you before.
Yeah.
You pay me to do a job.
Yeah.
Okay? Work on an adjudication, a mediation. What would I do? As an independent expert, what would I do?
You would look after the person paying a check.
Absolutely, 110%.
However,
I'm telling you that from personal experience.
I'm actually going to qualify because I have actually said to you many a time, I want to know it as it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I fully agree.
Because I'm paying a check.
100%.
Yeah, I need to know the facts because I need what's not.
You've told me that multiple times, but I'll tell you where my inclination would go. I'd go, I've got to help the person who's paying my bill. Yeah. But that's literally what's happening in our industry. Yeah. Where you've got engineers to the contract.
Who is also the client's advisor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how many times have you come across the design consultant have another wing that goes, oh yeah, we will have a project management wing where we have engineers to the contract, but we do the design as well.
And cost consultancy.
No,
in a lot of cases, it doesn't
and,
work.
and that's direct conflict of interest in my opinion.
It is.
100%.
And, you know, if you look at all the case law that kind of surrounds it, you know, there is the case law that says, well, just because he is the client advisor doesn't mean that he can't step aside and act independently and fairly. But the trouble is that we just are engineers to the contract. You know, what does that mean, an engineer to the contract? It's a contract administrator. Yeah. You know, we need to dispense of this word engineer to the contract. They're not engineers. They can be building surveyors. They can be quantity surveyors. They could be architects, project managers, but they're not engineers. So let's dispense of that and actually use the word that we're supposed to be using, which is contract administrator. Whether we get this through, I don't know. Who knows with drafting
Who's got the authority to do that?
But give him a proper designation, which is I'm here to administer the contract and make sure that it's administered properly.
And both parties play fair.
And play fair. So unless you're going to get dispense of all the good faith onus on that contract administrator, you know, he's got a duty to both parties to be fair and reasonable.
So now when we say both parties, we're talking about the main contractor and the client.
Absolutely.
But the same concept does not flow through down to subcontracts, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. However,
that's quite interesting for me too.
It is very interesting because the way that, you know, 391 works is that, you know, for the subcontractors, there needs to be an engineer to the contract for the purpose of the subcontract.
Agreed.
I.e., you know, somebody from the contractor's organisation is going to stand there as the independent person and say, right, okay, well, I'm going to assess your claims. However, what we often find is that, you know, there's wording in a subcontract that says that the subcontractor will only be entitled to an extension of time that the main contractor gets. But what happens then, which is nonsense, because...
But the main contractor's critical path is very different to the subcontractor's critical path.
Well, it should be the same.
Well, I mean, not necessarily, because a subcontract could finish much earlier than the main contract.
Yeah. So how does a subcontractor ask for an extension of time, for example, if the completion date is the main contractor's completion date, and he's doing the front works?
Well, if he's
doing, because it's not affecting, you know, he doesn't know what's the end result.
So hypothetically, what we're saying is if there's a piling contractor, he completes the piling, and then he should complete his contract, get all his retentions done.
Absolutely. New Zealand, so unlike the UK, so all UK contracts have, so for example, the JCT forms have a domestic subcontract. What you will find in the domestic subcontract is a subcontract completion date. And the retentions and liquidated damages, absolutely. It's only New Zealand where we don't seem to have that.
Oh, we don't?
No, we don't.
Oh, sorry, that wasn't news to me. That's it.
No, we don't. No, we don't, because the subcontract completion date is always either the main contract completion date or whatever program they decide to chuck at the subcontractor.
So you're telling me if I'm a subcontractor, let's say I'm a piling subcontractor, and let's say you're a tier 1 construction company and I come and sign up to a contract with you, you're going to tell me that my retentions are going to be held up for 18 months or 20 months to when you finish?
That's what they do.
But then that kills my cash flow as a piling contractor.
Exactly, and this is one of the problems we have. So in the UK,
that ruins me as a business.
Yep. And this is the problem. So in 2011, the UK, they actually, in the new CCA, the Construction Contracts Act, they banned any ability of the main contractor to hold the subcontractor retentions to the main contract completion date.
I'd fully agree with that.
Sensible, isn't it?
Yep. I'd fully agree with that.
Yep, totally. You know, why was the CCA brought in? To aid cash flow. Cash flow is the lifeblood of the industry.
Cash flow's king.
So not only do they have retentions, but a lot of these subcontractors have performance bonds. So they've got the performance bond tied up for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, whatever it happens to be. Plus they've got the retentions on a delayed project tied up for God knows how many years. But they've only had 3 months of work at the beginning of the project. How can that be fair?
It's not.
It's not. It's not. So it's nonsensical.
That must be a root cause for why you've got mom and dad companies going broke. They don't have the cash flow.
Absolutely. 70% of all receiverships at the moment, liquidations, are construction companies.
Wow.
And yeah, absolutely, 70%. And that's so ridiculous. What are we doing to protect subcontractors, the people that are doing the work, because let's face it, our main contractors here are very different to the UK. The UK actually do a lot of the work themselves, subcontract out the M&E and the securities and things, but the mainstay of the work is
I actually want to put that. I want to put that question out to the construction accords. What are the accords doing about it?
Probably nothing, because they can
Why?
only.
The construction accords was set up with the main purpose of ensuring that small and medium-sized companies don't go broke. They make the processes more efficient so people don't go broke.
Yeah, but I think we look at the new government procurement rules. It's about sourcing from local people. It's about having fair contracts.
I'm for all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. But the actual management of that contract, there doesn't seem to be any onus on that. How does the subcontract retention kind of work? It's still tied to the main contract. Well, that's nonsensical, because if he's finished his work, let's say somebody that's doing the piling, for example. You're not going to know if there's any piling problem until probably 50 years down the line.
Yeah, probably not. I mean,
so what's the point in holding retention for the main contract date?
But then, as a main contractor, how would you identify that end point? So piling's complete. As soon as he finishes his supporting paperwork, releases retention. Release
half his retention, the other half an hour, 6 months later or a year later. But it's the whole setup here is wrong.
Yeah, right.
And
so let's talk about what you would do to change that. So let's talk about your top 3 pain points and what you would do to change them. NZ 3910 specific in our New Zealand construction industry, what we're going through today.
Okay, 3910 needs a contract administrator.
Yep.
Who is independent of all the parties.
Who's been paid by both the client and the main
contract. A lot of people say to me,
I reckon he has to be qualified.
Yes, absolutely.
because technically, if I had a project, let's say I had a $5 million job, and I said, oh, I know a great person that could be an engineer to the contract. Raine's my mate. She can be the engineer to the contract. Nobody cares what qualifications Raine has.
No.
But then you can be the engineer of the contract because you're my mate.
Yeah, and
it's true.
Or that we're doing the design, or we're doing the costing.
We'll help you out there.
So why on earth would you get? So I was actually having a discussion with someone in the aircraft up here about tendering, and when I was doing my apprenticeship, we would be taking all the design. And we'd be putting together a bill of quantities. And sometimes we would, because we were experts in our fields, we knew what was needed to be done. We'd be going back to the M&E designers or the architect or the structural and say, actually, you've missed this. You need to revise the drawing. So we'd actually put together a set of bill of quantities on the basis of everything that we thought was needed to build that project.
So
then
the New Zealand construction industry, or the building
use
division,
older information.
The building division would probably turn around and ask you, what's bill of quantities?
Yeah.
Why should I do a takeoff?
We need bill of quantities. We need bill of quantities because we've got people pricing that aren't even qualified to price. I know.
So,
well, how did you come up with that price? Well, it's quite similar to that other job.
Yeah.
But hold on a minute, that's 2 years ago.
Yeah,
We've had COVID.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
That's ridiculous.
But then what you do is you put the bill of quantities out to tender, and then those prices come in. And the prices that come in
comparing apples to apples
will give you an idea of whether your cost plan's right or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Then you're comparing apples to apples to apples.
Absolutely. And then, you will have your preferred tenders, and you'll look through them, and you'll look through the tender. And I've actually gone through tenders and said, you're $100,000 light on your labour. I want you to, put another $100,000 of labour in. And we've gone off, and on the basis of doing things properly, every job that I ever worked on came in on time and came in either on budget or under budget. What we have here in New Zealand is we have no bills of quantities. We have design, 60% complete by the time it goes out to tender. We've got cadets not knowing what they're doing, sending stuff out, not sending all the stuff out, not sending the whole contract out. Countless times.
This is real interesting, right? So I had Matt Stanford on my podcast a while ago. He's a design manager. So he used to work for Fletcher's, and now he works for Pipeline and Civil.
Oh, yeah.
And he turned around and told me they do not get given 3D models as a subcontractor. He's worked for the main contractor. Now he works for a subcontractor. And he goes, we don't get given 3D models.
Why not?
I asked him the same question. I was baffled by the fact that he doesn't get 3D models to do his pricing, to do his takeoff, to do. He's a really good design manager, by the way. He's a great design manager. And he said, we don't get them.
We don't get it.
We don't get the 3D model to do a takeoff. And I went, I'm blown away by that fact that you don't actually get it as a tier 2. So this is loss of information along the chain of events as well.
Well, the thing is here that, you know, we've got clients that want, you know, a fixed price lump sum contract. But what's actually coming in is a priced 60% design.
Yep, but then who carries the risk of the 40%?
Well, the client does, really.
Oh, really?
Well, the client should do.
Oh, yes.
Unless it's a design and build. Yeah. But invariably what happens is we know that, okay, so the contractor's going to look through the, you know, the first drawings that he's got when he starts the job, you know, pick up all the variations. Variations are paid, generally.
So if the clients did carry that 40% risk, Fletcher's wouldn't have lost $1 billion.
No.
Let's be honest.
Fletcher's did cock up a few more times.
They did. I mean, yeah, they did sign up to a few shitty jobs, which I did work on.
Yeah.
And
a bad contract.
Yeah, but they did get out of it, which is, thank God. Well done to them, getting out of it in one, you know.
Yeah.
But if the client did carry that risk, Fletcher's wouldn't have lost $1 billion. It's $1 billion we're talking about here.
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? Is that, you know, under a fixed price lump sum contract, the principal carries the risk. So why isn't he ensuring? And I say this to consultants when I have them on our training courses. You have a duty of care owed to your client to say, look, wait. We're only 60% complete. If we go out to tender now, you're going to get a 60% cost. But there seems to be, I think, you know, and particularly in Auckland with, you know, the market is like, get it built, get it built, get it built. There's been this impatience. But I have to say, you know, where the consultants' balls, you know, like I would, wait until we've completed the design, wait until we've got everything to go out to tender, and then you'll get your fixed lump sum. Why don't we, if you're impatient to go out with a 60% design,
go to an ECI?
Actually, yeah, we could do the ECI. I love...
Go to an alliance?
Yeah, I love that. But we don't. You know, the thing is with this industry here, it is so immature. You know, it is all based on cost.
What can we do to improve that, really, you and me? Let's just talk about, put your skill set and my skill set together. What can we do to improve? Training everybody. So we are training a lot more consultants now. Which is
definitely.
Which is you and I as a team are training.
And government bodies, we are also training. And I am very, very frank in the way that I talk, you know, and at the end of the day...
And I love that. And I absolutely love that.
I do. Some people don't like it, but, you know, it is me. And I've been kicking around in this industry for a very long time, so I've seen it all. Yeah. I have really seen it all. But we need to educate. You know, we've got cadets coming out of, you know, Massey University, not even know how to scale a drawing. You know, they probably don't know how to put a bill of quantities together. You know, they don't understand a contract. I think there's a lot of half-day lecture on contract. Well, it's nonsensical. These guys are putting out contracts, you know, to subcontract. Well, sometimes, most of the time when I look at a subcontract, there will be, you know, the subcontractor agrees it's going to be bound by the terms of the head contract, but he's never provided Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. I mean, how nonsensical is that? And in Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, you've got liquidated damages, you've got all these amendments to the standard form, you know, but they don't know. They don't know. So they end up signing up a contract which has got time bars and condition precedent clauses that they do not understand
So let's say I'm a subcontractor. Why would I sign up to that clause? What would push me? So as a subcontractor, why would I sign up to it?
Because you don't understand contracts. You don't understand the implications of some of the wording in the contracts.
But so let's say he's been burnt a couple of times, and and as a subcontractor, I'm learning, right? But it's still happening in our industry. Why is that?
It's all over the place.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. No, I've seen it. You've seen it.
I mean, I've got a few subcontractors that now every time they tender, they send me through the contract document and say, Raine, can you review it? And every single time I look at it, go, ask for Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 of the main contract. If you're going to be bound by this by the head contract, you need to know what you're going to be bound by.
Yeah, right.
You know, so they ask, well, why do you need that? Because there's a clause in here that says that I'm supposed to be bound by the head contract.
Yeah, right.
You know, unless I know what I'm supposed to be bound by, how can I be? You know, but this is simple, basic stuff. This is simple, basic stuff that is missing from the education and the knowledge of these people putting these tenders together.
How we got it so wrong? How as an industry we've got it so wrong?
Because we're at the bottom of the world. We're at the bottom of the world. We don't have dual qualified people like me and, you know, hundreds and thousands like me in the UK. We have people that have a little bit of knowledge, or they've got...
a little bit enough to be dangerous?
A little enough to be dangerous. You know, I have people come on my courses and, God, yeah, we're going to do it properly, Raine. Yeah. I go, issue that notice of delay. You know, do it as soon as you know that there might be a potential delay, you know. You know, a year down the line, I've got a phone call. Oh, Raine, we've got this real problem with this project. Did you do this? Oh, no, we didn't. And the reason they didn't.
She'll be all right, Raine.
She'll be all right. You know, because it's 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I've got a fishing trip coming up and I've got busies tonight. Tell you what, I'll leave that notice of delay until Monday. Never happens. You know, we're very bad at administration.
Do you think as Kiwis we shy away from confrontation?
I think definitely, but there's also an underlying problem of accountability here.
Accountability?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that goes right across the board.
Yeah.
You know, that's right from, you know, the consultants right down that supply chain, you know, subcontractors.
Clients, engineers to contracts and project management consultants.
And the
designers.
consultancy. You know, whoever put the cost plan together, you know, when you go out to tender, you don't think, right, okay, well, it doesn't meet my tender, so I'm going to take the lowest tender and still slash another 200 grand off. Yeah. You need to understand as a cost plan, you know, the person putting together, why, you know, we're not meeting the market. You have to meet the market. You know, and these are very, very trying times we've got at the moment.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, and there's
interest rates are the highest they've ever been.
Absolutely.
Almost
you know, okay, we haven't got so much of a supply issue with materials at the moment, but we have a high inflation.
We're a massive
You know,
inflation.
we've still got people, you know, going off with COVID. We've got a lot of suicides. We've got a lot of stress. There's a lot going on, and people need to start listening. Yeah. You know, we need to start listening to the market and what's going on in the market to really understand, right, okay, well, we've got this project. Should we go ahead? It's only 60% design. You know, we've got a preferred contract, but he's busy. You know, he's got 5 other jobs to work. Should we be looking at somebody else?
And what's the risk portfolio of me taking on that job?
No one thinks of risk. No one thinks of risk. Oh. You know, I live in a world, I came from a world of, right from inception of a project, you had a risk register. Yep. You know, you looked at all the design risks, you looked at all the project risks, is it a brown site, is it a green site, whatever it is. You looked at all those risks and you dealt with them, you managed them from day one. Yep. And you'd actually, I say when I'm training contractors and subcontractors, look, there's never going to be a risk register at tender, but why don't you highlight what these potential risks are? Because at least then, if you highlight them, could be cost, could be resource, could be design, you know, any risks that you can see from those tender documents, highlight it.
But then, risk register is also dangerous, where it's like a log of risks, and it's always forgotten. At some point, somebody forgets that.
No, but you don't.
But you don't. I know.
We have PCG meetings. So we've got PCG meetings. I read PCG meeting minutes, and I'm going, what was the purpose of that? Because there's nothing in there.
9 times out of 10?
For the bank. For the bank.
Or because they had to have one, or the project management consultant.
But you look at the contractor's report, you know, at the bottom of the contractor's report, there should be, right, okay, risks, delays, a section of them. Who owns it? Yep. How are we going to manage it? What are we going to do about this? Have the discussion.
Yep. Get them to
but
understand.
It all gets chucked under the carpet.
So I'll tell you what I've witnessed in New Zealand. So I've been here, good 14 years now? Something like that. And
you're a bit younger than me as well. You've grown up with it. I've kind of come in here thinking, oh my God.
I've worked on 3 jobs, I think, that I can count off, that have run scheduled risk analysis. And out of which I've sat in meetings that I can count the fingers on one hand.
In 14 years.
In 14 years. Yeah. On how many people would understand the outputs of a good SRA or scheduled risk analysis, what P80 means, what P60 means, and what they're signing up to, and what that actually means from a schedule perspective, right? It's like it's lost. People don't really understand what that means.
No.
Schedule risk analysis is kind of basics for a planner. You get taught that in theory, and you go, right, you understand how risk is assigned to various different tasks, and then the flow and impacts of those risks, and how a software runs 100,000 iterations of every risk on a schedule, and then gives you a beautiful tornado graph, and then you understand what that means to then sign up to a contract. Tell you what we do in New Zealand.
Nothing.
We actually do something. We add one bar on the critical path at the back end, just before PC, right? And say, oh, I'm going to add 30 days of contingency time in there.
Contingency, that magic word, contingency.
Oh,
yes.
hang on. There's a massive confusion between contingency and total float, but never mind, I won't get into that. But just go, right. I'm just going to add a bar in there that goes 30 days. What does that make up?
Yeah, anything.
Nobody knows.
Anything, yeah, contingency. It's like, well,
yeah, whatever, yeah.
You talk to the public bodies, you know, and they always allow a contingency, you know, of 20% for the project, but for what?
It's never documented.
It's never defined.
But that is a reason why a lot of contractors and clients or project management companies get into conflict, because it's never disclosed why you have that contingency allowance for. I'm always going to disclose it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Record
Unforeseen ground conditions.
Sure.
Look, most problems start in the ground, don't they?
All the problems start in the ground.
They do, you know. You look, every single new project being built from the start, unforeseen ground conditions. Wouldn't it be sensible to allow in a contractor's tender a contingency for 100 grand, 200 grand or whatever for unforeseens? We know it's going to happen. We're going to deal with it. We're going to allow some of money. If it doesn't happen, then that's okay. We don't use that contingency. But at least we're managing it and dealing with it.
But I think the whole point is being open, honest, and disclosing the facts between the client and having that collaborative approach.
Yeah.
And I think my problem is that I don't believe NZ3910 promotes that collaborative approach.
Right. I tell you that if you look at the rule 3910 before Bell Gully or, you know, any of these other companies, lawyers have got hold of it, the good faith. I keep coming back to this good faith clause. You know, it's important.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at it, it's a very fair contract. You know, if the engineer cocks up, then it's treated as a variation. If you fail to do something you should have done,
default of
then
principle.
It gets treated as a variation. So there is a premise that, you know, if he fails to grant an extension of time, then the contractor will get it, because acting fairly and independently and in good faith, if the principal's caused delay by a variation or lack of information or, you know, lack of design, whatever it happens to be, then he's going to get it. What's happened is that we've got a lot of lawyers drafting conditions, putting in what are perceived as time bars and condition precedent clauses, which in the eyes of law have to be so well drafted. They have to say that, you know, the failure to do this in this amount of time will mean that you are denied your extension of time, for example. What we see is, you know, engineers shouting time bar because the words reasonably practical have been taken out. Well, that's not a time bar, because 3910 says the engineer has to act in good faith. He's not bound to grant an extension of time, but because of the good faith clause, he should do. Maybe, you know, it's not a time bar, but this is where the legal interpretation kind of falls down here, is that, you know, we're having so-called condition precedent clauses and time bars.
If that clause remains, my advice to all main contractors would be, take all the engineers to the contract out for beers. Beers best friend.
Take them out for beers, yeah, well... Yeah, possibly. But it's a difficult.
I don't know what you mean.
It's a difficult thing. You know, I talked to a training consultancy recently. 20 of their staff, most of which acted as engineer to the contract. It was very enlightening that they actually said to me, Raine, half the time we are as much in the dark about this contract as the contractor is at administrating it and what to do.
But the engineers to the contract. They're a project management company.
Which was, I was like, well, you know, and actually said to me, like, if you actually did a course, which is being done, clause by clause on the role of the engineer to the contract, you know, everybody should take it up, because there's not the training there. But these engineers to the contract should know about programs, they should know about the law, they should know about contract interpretation, they should know about quantity surveying, they should know about valuing variations, design, but none of them ever are. This is why we have so many times that we've got a building surveyor from a building surveying management contract, consultancy, that is acting as engineer to the contract, but they have to engage a PQS to value the payment claims. Well, there is no provision in 3910 for that to happen unless you draft it.
So if you've got such incompetency in the market, explain to me how every project management company has an office that has a view of the harbour bridge.
Well, they're obviously doing something right on that, because I think that the lack of incompetency and knowledge is right up there. It starts from the top. It starts from your government parties. It starts from your developers. The developers often take on a PMO that thinks that they are going to be, getting a better value from having it all, in one shop. But they're not, of course, because we know, so some of the stuff that we do is that, if you've got them doing the design as well, then they're not going to want to be sticking their hands up in the air and going, sorry, we fucked up there. But
no, they'll never say they fucked up the design.
They
will,
and which is why so many times...
And that's a direct conflict of interest.
It is a conflict of interest, but because you have got a clause in the contract that the principal must at all times appoint an engineer to the contract that fulfills all his obligations independently and in good faith, then that gets around the conflict issues, because the law says, well, no, because he's got that obligation, even though it never really happens.
I'm still trying to figure out how I get me an office with the view of the harbour bridge.
Well,
I'll tell you the view in my office, Raine.
Yeah.
It's a garage door.
You've got to read an article which was written in, I think, 2013 by Professor Doug Jones about prevention principle and stuff. It's a really interesting article that I spoke to him recently about, with the problem here in New Zealand with having subcontractors tied to a program which is 6 months out of date by the time they start, and then they get into the contract 6 months later, so it's now a year out of date. As I've got one at the moment, and then the contractor turns around and says, "Well, you're time bar because you didn't ask for an extension of time from day one." But then we have this situation. We've got clause 6.7.1 in 3910 that says, if the works are unable to proceed, or part of the works, the engineer must suspend the works. So likewise, the contractor should be suspending every subcontractor's works that he cannot start on the date that's included in his subcontract. But they never do.
Yeah, it never happens.
And it never I've been training 3910 now for 10 years. And every time I get consultants in a room and say, right, okay, got a start date in the contract. There's no building consent. Contractor can't actually start any of the works. What should you do? And they all look at me, blank look. The contractor can get an extension of time. No, as engineer to the contract, what must you do? And not one person in 10 years has given me the right answer, which is to suspend the works under 671.
Because that's not...
Because there's not the knowledge yet, because people don't get trained.
No, that's because they're paid by the client.
Because they don't want to do it.
Why?
I don't know whether you saw my LinkedIn thing the other day about early advance notification and notice of delay. In 10 years, even though clause 521 says that the engineer to the contract and the contractor shall each notify each other of something that will potentially delay the project, not once in 10 years have I ever seen one come back from a consultant, and once again from the engineer to the contract. When you ask these in training, why don't you issue them? You get, again, a blank look.
So the contractors are expected to issue early warning notices one way to the client, but it never happens the other way around. No. Wow, that's actually really interesting.
The contract says that each must notify each other, same as NEC.
Wow.
And this is the problem with the industry.
I've never ever received an early warning notice from an engineer to the contract or the client.
Can you imagine the uproar, particularly with developers, if engineers to the contract, I mean, let's face it, we know that lots of variations happen. Those variations increase the scope of the work. So why is it that, you know, when there has been a big variation in instruction, adding work to an already delayed project,
they just issue
why
a
is it
CI.
not issued under a clause 521 notice?
Yeah. They just issue a change notice and go,
Yeah.
here's your CI.
And most
change.
of it, as we know from that
Yeah.
Fletcher's job we worked on,
Yeah.
you know, no cost.
Yeah.
No cost.
No. Yeah, what's that
It's
type
for
C,
the
is it?
contractor to
Yeah.
come back and say, well, actually, yeah, there is a cost.
Yeah, and it's up to the contractor to challenge that with the engineer of the contract for cost.
Absolutely,
Which is
and they
ridiculous.
do, but they might not do it, you know, within the 5 working days stipulated in the contract.
Yeah. And then
finally does it, and then the engineer comes back and now you're time barred.
Your time barred.
Yeah, which is just nonsense, isn't
Ridiculous.
it? So you know, I've got a lot of stuff going on at the moment, and you know, so I can have 30 odd disputes going on at one time, but you know, we're seeing more stuff coming in, more condition precedent clauses, which only set time at large because the engineer has the capability of granting an extension of time, which flows down to the main contractor to grant that extension of time to subcontractors because he knows his act of prevention or one up the line has caused that delay.
But he's not going to look
But
favourable.
they're not doing it.
Yeah, they won't. Why?
So they don't want to do it.
If I was paid by the
Because
client, I was
they
in
don't.
contract,
Because
why would I?
it's this whole thing, isn't it, of mistrust in the industry.
Yeah, there's massive,
We don't want to give
massive
them any
amount of
information they might be able to use. You know, it might help them out. Oh no, let's keep them in the dark and let's just slam them with a time bar. It's.
But anyways, so long story short, we've got critical problems.
There's a lot to do.
There's a lot of problems. I've got one last question for you. Are you involved in helping revise NZ 3910?
I was, and then they
because I strongly believe your input would be invaluable.
Yes,
with
I
all
thought
the
so
experience that you've got, which is the amount of mediations, adjudications that you've been through by yourself and we worked through together, I strongly believe it'll be invaluable.
Yeah.
So are you involved in...
So what I can do, so I started off on the panel, and then they cut it down to 10 members.
Is that part of the Accords?
That was not the Accord, by standards. They didn't want too many people on the revision committee, so they've tied it down to KO Housing New Zealand Transport, the Institute of Building. So one member from all those bodies. And of course, you know, I'm not one of those bodies, so I got excluded. But I can, you know, the revisions come out, and I can make
comment on it.
Comments on them. Yeah.
So when do you believe we can expect a version of NZ?
Well,
I've been told end of this year. I mean, that's what I hear,
well,
but I don't know
I've
how
been
far
told.
that's true.
I've been told July next year.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
But the trouble is, it's not just about revising a contract. It's about changing behaviours.
100%.
Collaboration.
But the contract is where you
is a
start, though, isn't it?
behaviour. It's not. You know, we can see the word
Fully
collaboration in the contract. You know, it's a word.
Yep.
But collaboration is a behaviour, and the industry has got to grow up so that we start actually collaborating and working together as a team.
But again, she'd be all right in cutting deals under the table. Is not the kind of collaboration that
it's
we're looking for.
It's an ingrained.
Yeah.
You know, I went to, you know, when the Fletcher's Convention Centre went up in smoke, and I was one of the speakers at the law conference that day. And as I walked in, there were a lot of lawyers and a few banks and developers there. It was the Construction Law conference. And just as I walked in, I can't remember who it was up talking. I probably shouldn't know. So either one or two people talking, but they were basically saying that the trouble with the industry is that the contractors milk it, you know, with variations.
Nonsense.
You know, that's the perception. Is that when you think about it, you know, main contractor has, you know, 7% on site, 7% off site on variations carried out by subcontractors. So every single variation for all those 50 odd subcontractors, he's getting 15% margin. But he's not doing any work. But then the subcontractors obviously got their margins on, which could be, you know, 10%. Wow. So the client's then paying 25%, 25%, you know, margin on every single bit of extra work that's been done.
And plus he's paying margin on margin.
Due to the fact that his consultants didn't get finalise the design in the first place. So this is the problem. We need to start. The only way we're going to correct this industry is to go back to bill of quantities.
Basics.
Fundamental basics.
Yep.
You know, go back to getting
quantify it, qualify it, plan it, deliver it.
Yeah. All this nonsense that we do at the moment for for going out. I shouted at the back of the Accord meeting, and Peter Reedy was there as, okay, this is going to be great for public, but what's going to be happening with the private sector? Oh, well, we're hoping it's going to rub off. Of course it's not. Yeah. Because the private sector is about money.
Yeah, 100%.
It's about profit. Developers aren't going in to do a building project to
lose money.
To lose money.
No way.
Although they do, as we know that there's been a few projects which have gone down the pan recently where contractors, designers have failed, contractors failed and so on. But, it's got to go back to those basic principles of getting that tender package as complete as it possibly can to enable the market to actually come up with a realistic price for it. And then
price,
having a project. And the other thing, the other big problem we've got as well is that, we're our main contractors are management contractors, but I don't see any management going on. Most of the time there is not management going on. They're not managing subcontractors well. They're chucking him all 3 week. They're not managing the process. The program is a management tool.
Agreed.
It should be on the bloody wall, updated with a pen every single day of where we're at, once a week, updated, thrown out to the subcontractors. Here we are. This is what you need to do. At the moment, it's just there's no management. Yeah. Project management organisations, I don't know what they do. They seem to act as post offices, for information.
Funny, you're not the first person to say that on the podcast. You are not the first person to say that on the podcast. Project management companies are postmasters. I would love for somebody from a project management company to come on my podcast and explain to me why they're not postmasters.
Yeah. And
because it's the second time I've heard that. Yeah. And I'm cracking up about it.
Coming from a world of NEC, which I worked on some pretty hefty £1 billion projects in the UK. Yeah. If we can administer the contract and manage multiple subcontractors for a £3 billion project under an NEC, which is very, very,
and we've got no NEC here, do we?
Well, no, we do. We do, but it's so we've used it in Christchurch. I think Watercare were using it at one point. It was used in Christchurch Airport.
Watercare have been a bit forward-thinking always.
Yeah, but when Andy Spittle was there, but since Andy Spittle, they've gone back to 3910.
Have they?
It was put in the two. So when I first came to New Zealand, I was one of the speakers on variations at the NEC conference, and it was after the earthquake, and there was we're going to use NEC. This is going to be good for Christchurch and so on. It got put in the too hard box. Everyone knew 3910. We're going to stick to it because
it should be all right.
Because
really.
You have to manage. You have to manage your supply chain. You have to manage the contract. You have to manage cost and time and program and everything else and risk.
Risk is very
and because it actually means people doing things and communicating and doing things in a time. So if 4 o'clock on the afternoon, it's business time. Sorry, but I've got to do that. You have to do it. 100%. Because you are time barred. The contract is so clear and
ambiguous. It's very crystal clear.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It
is written there's no
but the thing is, we can actually do better. How we could do better is actually when main contractors sign up as subcontractors, they can go through the contract and the subcontract and the program with them. They can ask for a method statement.
And I've been finding ways to improve that communication is through good 4D planning. How do you communicate the methodology
and talking? And talking. So much is done on, the old keyboard warriors, isn't it? But pick up the goddamn phone and talk to somebody. Ring your subcontractors every week. Yeah. Sorry, mate, but I know you're supposed to be starting next week. But actually, no, we're still behind. But we'll give you another ring. We'll let you know what's going on, when you need to resource. That doesn't happen. I've got subcontractors that 6 months past, and suddenly they get a phone call. Hey, mate, we needed you on site next week. Well, hold on a minute. We thought that, we didn't get the job or, it had gone down the pan or something because it's 6 months we've not heard from you. It's communication, isn't it?
Effective communication.
Yeah, and it isn't. And I do think that having started off on site with with contractors, contract managers that actually wrote everything and had a secretary on site, so everything was done. This keyboard warrior kind of thing now, where you've just got people that stick it on to somebody else, they can deal with it.
But anyways, so in summary, we have a lot of problems in our...
We have a lot of problems in the industry. We need to grow up. There needs to be a lot more education.
And we need to work collaboratively, communicate effectively.
It's, you know, construction is a team. It's teamwork, isn't it?
But it's
no brainer.
Doesn't take a genius to build either. We've been building since the pyramids, and we've been defined by the rules of gravity.
Exactly.
But anyways, thank you so much for all of those insights, Raine. That was.
Oh, I could go on for hours and hours and hours, as you know, Andy. But we there's a lot to be done.
Yeah, Chris has given me a wave on how we've got to 45 minutes. And
have we really? Wow.
And more, he says.
Goodness me.
No, but that's been a really interesting conversation. I hope the industry gets something out of that, and I really appreciate it all.
Yeah, no, good.
Thank you so much for being here. All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure, Raine. We'll have you on for another one for sure.
Let's hope we can update it with some good news.
Yeah, there we go. That's the one. All right.
Oh, good.
Thank you.